Director Input, we need to report out the process.
Yeah,
What
of
else
course.
discussions? You gave correction to staff.
Good job.
Gave direction to staff with no action.
With no action taken. Correct, sir.
Thank you.
Where's John?
He's not here.
Okay.
Persons wishing to speak on a matter not on the agenda may be heard at this time. However, no action will be taken until placed on the future agenda. Speaking are limited to 3 minutes. Please complete a speaking request, sign in up there at the podium if you speak, form and place in a basket provided. So now we may hear any public comment.
Yes. Is there any public comment for items not on the agenda?
This is
Yeah,
not-
that's not on the agenda, and that out
Do you wanna
from
speak?
John to Sean's office.
Okay, do you want to speak to it or?
Well, I'll talk at my appropriate time.
This would be the appropriate time.
Because this isn't on
Will
the
this
agenda.
be relevant to the
It,
San Diego Advisory Council report?
yeah,
Okay. Do you want to hold it till that time?
Is that?
you can have it now.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, it's,
Just have that
I
one.
do work on that.
Okay, so no further comments on nothing that's on the agenda?
Yeah, I wanna make one.
Okay.
Okay.
I need you to
Just
go.
sign in and
Yeah.
please step to the podium.
I turned the water to
Okay, the only thing I'm interested in is the last meeting. And I wanna know why these people here can go in and negotiate salaries without input from the people's, which is you guys, the board.
We'll have representation from the board through our general manager.
Yeah,
I just want to remind the public that public comment is not a question answer session. It's just to provide comment, it's not to engage the board in dialogue. So if that's
okay,
something you have, we can.
that's fine, but the people need to know what happened to the negotiations that went on for the employees. And another thing, I would like to know, how come this man here is making $100,000? Why is his wife an employee, and who are the new employees? Are they relation, or what's going on?
I'll just address it just very briefly from the general counsel's office. The board has provided direction to the general manager to act in his capacity as the head administrator. So every person's salary and every person's negotiation goes through the board before there's any final decision. So that's all I'll say on that topic.
Yeah, well, I understand that, but John has been part of all negotiations in the past. And,
It's definitely a pattern.
yeah, so, I mean, why, and you guys said, no, John, you can't come to the negotiations. You're just gonna let the general manager and Rob here. who's
Rob is the general manager, sir.
I'm not talking, what I'm talking about is the person that writes the checks that the people pay. They need to be involved in any salary negotiations.
I don't follow.
Mr. Rose,
I don't think I understand.
first of all, thank you for your comment. This is a format that we do use, and they are involved in the decision process. In negotiations, you have two parties with a mediator. That is the format we're in, and the position you're referring to of Mr. Green is to be on the side of the board, representing the board, not stepping over as the mediator, going directly to the employees and bypassing four of the board members and the administrative staff.
Well, I understand that, but somebody that does the negotiating should be representing the people. It's not like,
That's my position, that's my job, I will do that.
well, But like I said, I mean, he's represented the people.
He's representing the board as one
He-
of five.
he-
Point of order, this is turning into a
Yeah,
dialogue.
anyway, he.
Yes,
Thank
thank you for your comments.
That's all I gotta say, and I think, you know, you guys need to let the people involved in this, and John represented it, and his whole board represented it.
Yes, thank you for your comment.
Thank you for your comment.
That's all I gotta say on that.
Vice President Sangster, the beginning.
Okay.
Let me get where we're at here.
We're on item 8, special presentations, public hearing. We have 2 public
So
hearings.
wait, just one second, Vice President Sangster, did you close the floor for public comment? Was there, I just wanna make sure there were no other people that
I
needed
did
to
not,
speak.
thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing that there's not, we'll be moving on. Item number 8, special presentations and public hearings, other.
First one, public hearing. I'm gonna read that one. Consider the approving of ordinance 01-2019, the San Miguel Community Service District. Board Director appointed San Miguel Community Service District, Water Code, and authorization for General Manager, Director of Utility, Fire Chief, and Assistant Fire Chief to enforce the provisions for the Water Code. This would be to
Yeah, that one.
Mr. Dawes.
No, it goes to Sangster. Go.
For it, am I moving chair?
Yep,
Okay.
start at the top,
So
it's
it's a public
open.
hearing.
Start the public hearing?
Yep.
Public hearing regarding a proposed ordinance, District Water Code of San Miguel Community Services District authorizing the general manager, director of utilities, fire chief, and assistant fire chief to enforce provisions of the water code, which will be collectively referred to as San Miguel Community Services District Local Ordinance 01-2019. This is the time and place for a public hearing relating to the district's proposed water code. This public hearing provides a forum for property owners and district customers to offer comment on the proposed water code. A sign-up sheet should be circulated. If you wish to make a public comment, please enter your name on the sign-up sheet.
It's at the podium.
Staff will provide a presentation regarding the proposed water code.
So this is the water code that we saw at the last meeting. There is 2 minor changes. Essentially, the purpose of this code is to provide clarity to district customers and staff by outlining procedures and practices regarding water services within the district. Beyond this clarity for the district customers and staff, adoption of the water code through ordinance 01-2019 will enable the district to move to more effectively administer connections to the district's water system and enforce requirements for water installations, devices, and conditions. Currently, the district relies on best management practices to enforce the requirements for operating the district's water system. The water code proposed for adoption under ordinance 01-2019 will codify the best management practices and establish other procedures allowing the district to require specific design and installation criteria and review to protect the district's water supply, the health of the district customers, and the good in the general public, as well as the district as a whole. There are 2 specific changes that have been made to the document before you. One is on page 37 regarding the clarification of the sizes. It meant to lean towards the lot size. That's been clarified so that it actually states that. Again, that's on page 37 in the chart. The other change is on page 45 of the document in section 6.4. Give me 2 seconds to get there. And a section under backflow protection devices was added. All backflows must either have a water meter installed prior to the backflow or have a integrated bypass meter. The integrated bypass meter must comply with the district's current metering program. If it is not compliant, it will be replaced at the owner's expense. Other than that, if there's any other corrections, either by the public or by staff, we can take those now.
Okay, It is time to take testimony from the public. We request that each person who speaks give their name and address and state whether they are the owner of property affected by the proposed water code. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Okay,
Right.
from the public. Okay, we don't have any public comments. We will close public hearing.
Director Sangster, we want to make sure there's board, opportunity for board comment first before we close public hearing.
Okay.
Yes.
Would we consider that board comment while it's open, or would it be closed?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
then we'll not close public hearing, we have board comment.
I have questions. I know while I was away, I submitted comments. I don't know what the response was to those comments I submitted.
They're in the board meeting minutes where I
I believe
wrote them out.
one of your comments was regarding conservation.
Conservation with regards to when you build first, and I talked a little, I think it was also about, stuff that was happening like on tariffs.
There is, provision in this document for general conservation. The conservation that you're referring to, or at least we're assuming you're referring to in your question,
Rain barrels.
rain barrels, conservation under new construction or remodeling, that's all captured under the county's permitting process. So that doesn't necessarily need to be ingrained in this necessarily. However, going forward, as new regulation comes across, we might revise this document as needed. But at this time, the conservation portions of this document are sufficient for our management needs.
Because the reason why I brought it up in the county's supposed to be doing this, but we're also managing our own water, and it's pumped out of our jurisdiction, and the county does whatever half the time. So, I mean, we're just gonna leave the county, just let them.
The county actually does a really good job with the landscape ordinances that they have currently. So I don't see the need to duplicate that effort. We do have the ability through the planning review process to make recommendations to the county as far as what they're requesting from an applicant.
Okay.
So that is another avenue, and they have more enforcement ability because they have more planning ability.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to ask is, we have lines that are running through other people's properties. Is there, right, if I'm not mistaken, we have lines where they go to people's front yards and everything else to service other homes. What's the standard on those lines? I mean,
That is part of the reason and the necessity for this type of document is to allow us to enforce where meters are, where lines are, on lots such as flag lots where you have no choice but to go down an easement. This gives us more of an ability to require easements before anything's built, which, although it's not necessarily a problem for us, but in the future, if that home ever sells or they have damage to that line, without an easement recorded for those properties, it becomes increasingly difficult and almost impossible for a neighboring property owner to fix a line on somebody else's property. Right now, out of best management practices, we don't allow that, but we don't have anything specifically saying you can't do that.
okay.
So that's part of what's in here, and part of what this eliminates is those questionable things that somebody, if they really wanted to, could say, no, this is where I want to put my meter, and maybe it cuts across the corner of somebody's property, but because it's cheaper, they want to put it there.
So what's going on with that right now? I read the document, but I didn't really quite see it being addressed with what's currently happening right now with the current lines around through people's yards.
So because we don't know where all of those are, we can't really address those. And because those are already pre-existing and they were already approved and supposedly inspected by somebody at some point, there's not a lot we can do until they want to modify it.
So when one of those lines fails and water's spewing out of one of those lines in somebody's front yard, but it's not their line, we're just gonna figure that out when that happens?
Well, unfortunately, like I said, we don't know where all those lines are, so it makes it increasingly difficult to find them, let alone address each one.
Is there anything in our liability insurance that covers property damage from our water lines? Because I know that we have a responsibility to replace things the way they were, but
Our liability insurance will cover damage from district facilities to private property.
example, water line is our
So
property.
let's say we have a water line on L Street by the school and it breaks and it floods a house down on Mission Street. Our insurance will cover the damage to the house or houses on Mission Street to put them back to a prior condition before that incident. The district's liability stops at the meter and it stops at the Y on sewer lines. So the laterals that you're talking about or field you're referencing, those are actually the responsibility of the homeowner or the property owner. But our duty as a district is to make sure that when those lines are put in, they're not put in just whatever is the easiest. They're put in to what's gonna last the longest and what's gonna be the most beneficial to those properties in the future.
Because I really am struggling with some of these areas, and I just see them coming up as problems in the future. And I'm probably have to either modify the water code so then we have, so we can address them in the future, or I don't know what you're gonna do with some of these. Because some of them are actually pretty big lines, if I'm not mistaken.
The code won't change the location of the existing line on
No.
another property owner's property.
Right, it won't change it, but it's just defining that who's gonna be responsible for that, so I know we can try and send an attorney after this district.
And that's what also is in here. This is only the water code. We will be bringing a sewer code for you, which is equally as exciting. But this clearly states that our obligation stops at the meter.
Okay.
So that although throughout the history of the district and the history of pretty much water districts everywhere, it's the point of connection that their liability stops. So if a line breaks between the meter and somebody's house, for instance, let's use the terrace where you have lines that run across 5 or 6 houses to get to a property.
Okay.
So if a line breaks somewhere along there or has a leak somewhere along there, the property owner of the property it's serving is the one responsible for that line all the way back to the meter. It's my stance